Radio, radio, radio.
It's not just radio anymore. Flow 94.9 FM brings you something big and new. Let's give you that camera light action effect, which is also part of our complete outside broadcast services for all your event coverage, both recorded and live. Juicy offers await you as you do business with us.
Let's go.
So what do you have? Is it a wedding, cultural event, birthday, conference, seminar, or showbiz? Whatever it is, we are always ready and set to give you what you need. We also run visual advert for your company, products, and services. And we air not just on radio, but also on our online TV. For more information and booking, you can visit Flow 94.9 FM located at 7B Factory Road, Umuahia, or visit our marketing office at Bank of Industry Building, number 1 Constitution Crescent, Asa Road, Abia State. Or call our marketing team on 0703 160 8029 or 0805 174 5686. Flow 94.9 FM, the flow of God's own state.
An educationist, executive director, Mayfair Academy here in Umuahia, and of course the national secretary of the National Association of Proprietors of Private Schools, Mazi Enyihabo. Good morning to you.
Good morning.
And of course, Professor Ikechi Mboji. Good morning to you. The immediate past Commissioner for Education in Abia State. Well, it's good to have you, gentlemen. Well, we're looking at the education sector in Abia State. A lot has been said. The past administration, 3 years thereabout. It will be 4 years on the May 29th of this month. Let's look at the scorecard so far. What has been happening in that sector of the part of this administration, which will be going for the second term come May 29.
Thank you very much. Well, I think before we begin to take stock of what we have achieved, it's also important to locate the achievements and the challenges within a wider context. And when I talk about context, I mean, you have to ask yourself, what are the tools that you've been, given to work with, and a whole lot of other factors. But by and large, we've done pretty well. I say so with all sense of candor and seriousness. Of course, as I said before, we must locate things within a proper context.
Okay.
Take, for example, Nigeria, our budget for education is 5% of our budget. 5%.
So you're talking about the federal government now?
Yes.
Okay.
5%. And bear in mind too that over 90% of the responsibility when it comes to education, by virtue of our own kind of constitution, is also a federal government responsibility. So we have 5%. Then compare that with other countries in the continent that may appear to be doing better. In fact, are doing better. South Africa, their national budget is 28%. In fact, the entire budget of Nigeria is not up to the budget of South Africa when it comes to education.
Okay.
So the reason why I'm laying this background is that folks can understand, where we are coming from. That's
it's a matter of limited resources for what you've achieved.
Huge limited resources. And also, there are issues regarding which particular level of government gets to do what. When I say that the bulk of education, is constitutionally borne by the federal government, I make reference to the fact that we have the so-called universal basic education, which means that for every Nigerian, the first 9 years of education ought to be free. Okay, so that means primary school of 6 years and junior secondary of 3 years, or it ought to be free. But then what we have is a situation in which, yes, you have this so-called free education, but the funding, to actualize that free education is simply not there. I just referred you to the statistics in terms of what budgetary provisions Nigeria makes for. So we have a country in which we talk about education, but we are not ready and willing to do the needful when it comes to funding education. And apart from funds, you have to have a vision of what it is you intend to achieve with, with the populace who seek education in that particular country. So when you look at the lack of vision, relative lack of vision at the federal level, and you look at the paucity of funds, and you look at the shortage of personnel that can drive whatever vision it is that we have, you can have a contest in which, if we look at what we have achieved in the Abia State, I would say that we have done a yeoman's job.
Okay. Talking about the yeoman's job in specific terms, can we? Okay.
Now, so let's start from the basic building blocks. That is the primary school where you start. This is the only state in the country that fits the entire spectrum of children, within the public school system.
From primary 1 to 6?
To 6.
Okay.
In many other states, they only feed about 2 or 3 class cohorts. This is the only state that does that comprehensive school feeding program. We've also done quite a lot in the past 2 years. The ASUBEB, with the full support of the governor, we were able to construct about 346 new school blocks.
346
new school blocks.
Okay.
We've also completed 4 model schools.
And those block of classrooms are in use presently?
They are there. So these are, if you go to Samokwa, if you drive from Obohilas, you use the Uruka Road, you see there right there by your right. So these are not fictional stuff. They are there for people to see. So you also look at the number of teachers that we have retrained. Because it's not enough to build blocks and put roof. You also have to look at the quality of those who teach our children. We've done quite a lot when it comes to training and retraining of teachers. We've also sought and received foreign help and expertise. We have folks from Australia coming in to do some of these. We also have liaised with the National Teachers Institute, based in Kaduna. They come in here quite often to train and retrain teachers in the state. So, sure, of course, we've had areas of challenges. One particular area of challenges, which I'll have to mention here, is of course the delay in the payment of school teachers. Sometimes that tends to overshadow all the other achievements that the government has made. But then we're not just here to talk about that particular problem. We're actually solving that problem. This is the only state, that for years somehow misapprehended the nature and structure of the law on universal basic education. By that I mean, this is the only state where those who teach in the junior secondary school, that's JSS 1 to 3, rather than be paid, have their salaries paid by the federal government. The state government has been paying them for over 10 years. And that largely accounts for the delay in the payment of teachers within the senior secondary sector. But the governor, when I brought this to the attention of the governor last year, he quickly gave an executive order that this articulation process be commenced immediately. In fact, if you're in the news, you would have heard of the committee that the deputy governor inaugurated. I think that was on Tuesday. And so the idea is to take those who teach in the junior secondary school sector, their salaries ought to have been paid for all these years by the federal government. The federal government makes contributions towards the payment of salaries, and then some of the budgetary provisions for the local government ought to be taken off and then put into that common pool. From there, you now pay the salaries of those who teach in the junior secondary school. So if that had been done, the financial burden the state has been bearing with respect of payment of the teachers would have been more than halved. So
how did we get to that point? Was it an error?
It was an error. It was an error. Part of it was on the ego of some folks. Part of it was on misapprehension, because some people didn't want to be called a classroom teacher. Some prefer to be called a tutor.
All right, just a moment. We will get back to you, Professor. But Mazi Habo, you're an educationist, and you're here in Abia State, and of course, the National Secretary of a national body, the National Association of Proprietors of Private Schools in Abia State. In your assessment, in the past 4 years or thereabout, what do you think about the education sector in Abia State? Both in the public sector and the private sector. I know you're a stakeholder in the private sector of the education sector. So in your assessment, what do you think about the education sector?
Yeah, thank you. I think that there has been some progress that has been made in the last 4 years or so, but there are still a lot of areas that we need improvement. And let's look at education not just at the basic and post-basic level, up to the tertiary, because in Abia, the ministry covers both tertiary, basic and post-basic. And so we look at the university. The state university is doing well. There's been stability in academic calendar, more than we've had in the past, which means that the teachers are a little more comfortable, and their salaries are coming more than it used to come. And so also the capacity of the university has grown to accommodate more students. Abia has a large number of applicants going into the university, and we don't have the Federal University in Abia is a specialized university that cannot take the teeming youths seeking admission, and so the capacity of the university has been enlarged to take in more students, and which is good, but we still need to enlarge it more, so that more courses come in and all that. And also some courses that had limited admission numbers have also been increased, like medicine takes more students now to study medicine. However, in other institutions like the Arochukwu Technical College, College of Education Arochukwu, we've not had a success story there. Abia Poly, we are still having challenges there, and School of Health Technology, and all those areas. Then in the area that the professor is talking about, in the primary education, yes, there's been some renovation of schools, but I don't know about new schools like that. Abia has been unfortunate from inception. When Abia was created, a lot of schools were shut down to create offices. For example, where the immigration office used to be, that they have left now, and CSDP is moving in there, was a very model primary school then. Library Avenue, where the government house is now, was a model primary school, not even built by the government, but built by individuals and given to government to run. And some other schools like that had to give way for government offices to come in when the state was created. And I don't see these schools being replaced since the creation of Abia. And I thought that with the governor being someone who is also part of the education sector, that we would have increased capacity of that. But what we have is a situation where we're renovating old schools, but we're also lacking the basic condiments that will attract students back to those schools. And so the population, there's a migration from the public to the private, and has given rise to emergence of many private schools, which also is not a good testimony of the capacity of the Ministry of Education to be able to check the spread and the proliferation of these schools. So we are looking at it holistically. In the secondary education is not a very good testimony, but also we have a good testimony in the sense that Abia has been producing good results in examinations, in external examinations, in the secondary level, in WAEC, in NECO, and all that, and even in JAM. And so that's a good testimony that I expected the professor to talk about. However, it's also been challenged by also the negative reports of examination malpractice on the rise in the state. So we'll look at it all that.
Okay, Honorable Commissioner, Sorry, immediate past. Professor Ikechi Mboji. Let's talk about the success story of Abia State in external examination. I mean, it's been there year in, year out. Abia has been on top right there. But there's also a question mark here.
I think you need to be specific, Samson.
WAEC, and
Jam,
then we have
just
Jam.
recently
Exactly.
Jam.
Exactly. But then some private school operators have been there've been intense argument on how to locate the success of this. And most of these results, they claim, are coming from private schools and not really the public schools.
That's complete bullshit. I mean, I don't understand why. First of all, they want to deny that there are things that are worthy going on in the state, and then when the facts stare them in the face, they want to shift the goalpost. I sat in that office as the Commissioner of Education. I know the types and numbers of awards won by Abians across the country, and you have a mix there. It's not just private schools that have been producing champions. There's one school, it's a public school. They won the quiz organized by Shell on environment. They came tops across the whole country. I myself was quite surprised. So the notion that that there are no good things going on in this state is just silly. It's false. And then the other notion again that the only good things happening in the education sector only comes from the private school is just not true. I have a list of, in fact, the guy who won the second best science teacher in the country teaches in one public school in Mbausi. There's a teacher at Ibeku High School. He came third overall in the country as the best science teacher. Students again from Ibeku High School won an award when they went to showcase their inventions. So I can go on and on and on and on. So you have students from public schools who are doing exceptionally well and who are winning prizes and awards, whether in quiz or science exhibition and all that. You also have some bright students from private schools who are doing well. Now, getting back to the narrative, I think that the narrative in this state tends to be unduly politicized. People want to paint a very bleak, negative picture so as to show that, in the opinion, that there's nothing going on, that those who are in office are all idiots doing nothing. When in fact, the facts are just the opposite. Now, with respect to the tertiary institution thing, what people also sometimes tend to forget is that these institutions, even though they were set up by the government, okay, their salaries are not the responsibilities of the government. So when I hear people say pay other police workers, pay SETA workers, I mean, and hearing that
it is the responsibility of who?
It is.
It is the responsibility of who if it is not
exactly.
The
so that is the question. You see, these are in the semi-autonomous institutions. Okay, they generate revenue, and the model is that you generate revenue, you spend as you deem fit. Okay, so you run that institution in a sustainable manner. Now, but then what we've had in many instances, at least for close to 15 years, is that you appoint someone as a rector or provost of a college. The moment they get there, they employ their aunties, their brothers, their sisters, and all their village people, even when there's absolutely no need for that. Okay? Aseta in Arochuk, for example, the number of staff there today exceeds the number of students they have. So you have a situation in which you have about a staff of about 400 or slightly more staff, whereas your students are below 400. Okay. And now,
Prof,
how on earth are you going to generate the revenue? Because whatever the government gives is subvention. If you look at the dictionary meaning of subvention, subvention is just the kind of support that somebody gives, an institution gives to keep that place going. The bulk of the revenue of any tertiary institution comes from this, particularly in places like North America or this, comes from the tuition that the students pay. But then to manage that tuition, It is the responsibility of those who are in charge of that school to make sure that when they are hiring people, okay, that they are in a position, in a capacity to pay. So a situation in which, let's say you go to Abia Police and you have about 80 gate men, 80 security men, when you have 2 gates.
Okay, Prof,
and then you come back and complain
we have heard this narrative.
How can you pay? If that polytechnic was the rector's personal private institution, would he hire 82 gate men?
That is the question. We've heard this narrative just before we came up here. The Honorable Commissioner for Information was on this particular issue, and I'm asking, what happens to the supervisory role of the government? Okay, if you've discovered that there are 80 gate men guarding just 2 gates, and you appointed, the government appointed the managers of those institutions, what did the government do? Or how did we allow things to degenerate to this level?
Education at the tertiary level, all over the world, if you want to create a responsible academic environment, government ought to keep an arm's length from whatever is going on within the 4 walls of that university or that polytechnic. That is the universal practice. Okay, it's only in this part of the world that people expect a governor to be summoning the rector, provost, VC every day to government house and say, do this, do that. You don't do that, because it's a place where people search for the truth without fear of political interference. They are ready to, they are free. They should be free to write or publish or research into anything, even things that are offensive to the government of the day. That is why they are up there. They call them ivory tower. So we have a bizarre situation in this country where we say that the government should almost micromanage the affairs of a tertiary institution, and then tomorrow the same people will come out and say that that because this particular lecturer wrote an article or whatever critical of government, that was why he was sacked. I have taught in a university in Canada for 20 years. I have never even seen the premier of the province in my school. Never.
Okay.
Well, the vice chancellor, the university president, has never even got to see the premier of the province. But here we expect that the government of the day ought to be micromanaging an institution, influencing somebody becoming a HOD or a lecturer, assistant lecturer, and all kind of nonsense. And yet we expect them to perform their jobs within the bounds of universal standard. We can't eat your cake and have it. Now, back to the point. These are institutions that have the authority to collect revenue, to collect tuition. Okay? In fact, about three years ago, we found that Abia Police, for example, had more than 40 accounts, 40 bank accounts. 40. Okay? And we said, what are you doing for? Even you as an individual, if you had 40 bank accounts, you wouldn't even know where your money was. Okay, so you go to Aseta, you have department where there's not a single student. So you create a department for a lecturer, you employ people, and they are doing nothing. There is no job to do because there are no students. And if there are no students, nobody's paying. And if somebody's paying, you don't have money. I teach in a university where there are 5 of us who share one secretary. Okay? Now, and these are professors who have written, some have written about 16, 14 books. These are some former fantastic scholars. You just Google and check their profile, you'll be amazed. But they have one secretary, 5 of us. That is the way it is shared. Every group of 5 professors, they share one faculty assistant. Now, go to Aseta, go to Abia Poly.
Okay, Professor Ikechi Mboji, we will get back to you as it concerns the achievement of the administration. Now, of course, we're looking at the way forward. That is why we're here. We will get back to you. But then I will go back. Let's go back to Mazi Enyihabo.
Yeah, exactly.
The private sector of the education, education sector, the private aspect, talking about the private schools, of course, from the primary to the secondary, and of course, we do have private universities and of course, polytechnics right here in Abia State. What do you think the achievement recorded so far, can we attribute it to the publics or the private schools?
Well, the professor says he has the facts, and of course he's in a position to have the figures more than any other person because he's the one that sees from every angle. His perspective is wider than every other person. I'll speak about what I know about the schools.
Okay.
We have a private sector that is highly competitive, and that ensures quality. There are two things that can happen when competition comes. It's either people cut corners or people strive for quality. Now here, people are beginning to look at it from the quality point of view, and people are working harder to get quality, and so we are getting better results from the private sector right now than it used to be in the past. And I think, that should be sustained. What we need to do is to set up quality control to ensure that things are done well and improved on what we have on ground right now. We have good schools coming up everywhere, better facilities, good teachers, and all that. And for the schools who are helping give Abia a good image, schools like Dorothy in Abia and Jomeg in Umuahia here, they are quality schools, and they are doing internationally well, both in the cowbell competitions, in the science competitions. Some of them have represented Nigeria abroad. And so that's something good coming to Abia.
For the feats recorded in WAEC and JAMB,
I don't have the figures right now. I don't know the schools, the particular. That's what I'm saying. I would rather believe what the honorable, the professor Mboji is saying, because he sees, he has a wider perspective to that.
But there's a point I wanted you to tie to your submission,
yes,
Mr. Ihabo. What do you make of the government supervisory role in the education sector? We talked about the assetter. The professor just painted a picture of a rot in that particular institution. Like he talked about a department with no student. What do you make of the supervisory role of the government?
That's a sorry side. That's a sorry story, and it shouldn't be like that. But these are things that have happened over the years. And what I expect the government of the day to do is to stand their feet and begin to cause things to change. Aseta is not a bad place. There are a lot of schools. For example, some years back, I made a proposal to Aseta. And I said, look, you people can partner with private schools, and we'll just be sending you candidates, and we'll be offloading your graduates. And so people will be interested in going. Nobody wants to go and read education, voluntarily. But right now, education is creating more jobs than other sectors. And so people are coming in, and some of them are coming in not qualified. And so we can send them there. They can open up study centers outside their location there, and they will have students who will come back once in a year or twice in a year to go and do a sandwich on campus and all that. And so their student population should increase. I agree with him. I don't see a reason. I can't justify an institution that has more faculty staff than students. It doesn't make sense in any way. Even in the private sector, you don't do that. Nobody does that kind of thing, and so things have to be done well. But also, the supervisory law we're talking about, the government appoints the rector, the government appoints the board that supervises the management and all that. So the government cannot shake away from the accusations and of that. We have to. If you have appointed the rector, did you appoint the right person there? Does he have the right capacities to run that school? Can he attract students? Can he attract funding? Can he run that place well? Can he put his feet down and make sure that all these kind of arbitrary employments are not done? Because if you put a politician there, a politician is thinking about the next election. And so he will be employing people to get his constituency to vote for him for the next election. And so that's how, but if you put a professional there, then that professional will do a better job, because he knows he's not going for election. He doesn't have any constituency apart from the academic constituency that he has. And he has to prove his mettle there. And then you don't fill the board with politicians also who are looking for contracts, because all that will be happening, even the subventions that the government is sending to them, the politicians will just share it. When the subvention comes, instead of plowing it into the system to better the system, is about sharing contracts, award this, award that, and the money goes. And so it's time for us to, as we are doing agenda setting, the next administration, as the administration comes in, they should get the board sorted out. Remove all the. I don't want politicians to be angry with me, but there are places you can put politicians, but not in the education center. It destroys the fabrics of the system.
Okay.
Professor Ikeji,
it's like
Mboji,
you quite agree with that point.
It looks like the major challenge now in the education sector. We have high point and of course the low point. The low point during the course of this administration is the issue of salary. And a lot has been said. He mentioned that politicians should not handle key sectors like the education sector. Subvention, your government pays a subvention every month, but then salaries are still owed.
See, within the cultural milieu, where we operate as Nigerians, and that's exactly what I was saying, that you are judged success or failure within a context, We have a situation or a culture in which a person appointed a rector even before he's shown his office. His village people are already on him. The level of unemployment in this country is criminally high. Some say it's about 30%. I say no, it's probably about 80%. Because there are too many jobless people in this country. Everybody's looking for a job. Now, if a person gets appointed to the office of provost or rector, his village people are on him. The school where the place where the school is also located, the traditional rulers there and their prominent sons and daughters are also on top of the rector or provost. That you must appoint our daughter, you must appoint. In fact, about 2 weeks ago, the people in the village summoned the provost to a meeting. It was almost as if they were calling him to a village meeting to come and discuss Aseta, as if Aseta is an Aradochuku village thing. It gives you the mindset of our people. I'm serious about this, So, and in fact, if you look at even the employment, it's almost as if it's that local government area and maybe a few neighboring local government. So, this sense of entitlement in Nigeria is that if a school or an institution is located here, that all our sons and daughters, qualified and unqualified, must be employed there. Even needed or not needed, you must employ them. So, you have this excessive political pressure that folks there have to deal with. And of course, if you don't sometimes absorb some of this pressure, they can even shut down the school or create problems for you. So we end up absorbing so much of these kinds of pressure. And the end result is that the overheads are so high, that there's just no way you can sustain. In fact, as we speak, that school appears to be on life support. So the question now is, what do we do going forward? That's why I agree with Enyihab. We have to understand that an academic environment is totally different, from a political terrain, particularly a tertiary academic environment, where people ought to be serious with their studies, where people ought to be somehow shielded from political and other kinds of pressure. It's not for the governor to say, remove that director, remove that HOD, sack that professor and all that. It will destroy the entire basis of freedom of academic inquiry. So we have to rethink the way we appoint people. We also, but then bear in mind that in many cases we won't even know who is capable of what unless and until you've appointed them to those offices. And then appointing, sacking, removing, taking up, all adds to instability. There, if you make a person a provost today and you see that the guy is just not up to it, and you sack him 6 months after, it destabilizes the place. So government is often caught between this rock and a hard place. People can show up with fantastic CVs, with PhDs and blah 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 blah, but then as soon as you appoint them to a particular office and they start, exhibiting certain things that we are hitherto unknown to the person who employed them, you are now caught between, do I call this person quietly and say, please, oh boy, pull back, or do I fire that person? So, and because we've been firing, shaking up, we see where we are at today. So these are all issues that government ought to look into, and society itself ought to look into. We ought to hold not just government accountable, but ourselves. The way and manner we put so much pressure on those who head these institutions. Even I, as a commissioner, if I tell you the number of CVs that I received from people looking for employment, for every particular job space, you have about 150 people looking for it. They just besiege you.
That brings us to another issue now. I remember there was a time the governor approved for employment of maths and science teachers, about 150, but we understood that your ministry submitted a list, but the Secondary Education Management Board overshot that list to about 1,000.
Yeah, we learned that there was a huge crowd of people at near Ibeku High School. I was alarmed. I had to call the executive secretary. I had to say, look, this is not what we envisaged. I can understand the SCMB trying to find some ingenious means of absorbing that kind of pressure. So what they were doing then was to appoint people as auxiliary teachers, to be paid some kind of stipend by the respective principals of the schools where they were meant to be posted. And look, I'm not saying this to disparage the private school sector.
Okay.
They do quite a lot of good things. But at the end of the day, let's be realistic. Very few private schools pay better than the public school system. That's a fact. There's no private school there's no public school teacher who earns anything less than 45 to 50,000 naira per month. Okay, there are a lot of, because the competition in the private school sector is so fierce that in some cases it's not just about a race to excellence; it's a race to the bottom. So they also have to bear some responsibility for what we go through. They need to put their house in order, especially in which you drive through one particular street and you see about 4 or 5 schools, less than, not even up to 50 meters apart. Now legally we can't stop people from setting up businesses or services
So
or
it's
whatever.
now about profit making than impacting.
Well, I mean, it's both. But the point I'm making is that there has to be some kind of internal self-regulation by the private school sector.
All right.
So that members have to be called to order. Say, before we allow you to proceed to apply for approval and registration.
Okay, because of our time,
Yes.
let's allow Mazi Enyihabo respond to that. Internal regulation. Is there anything like that amidst the private schools?
Well, in our constitution there is.
Okay.
However, our association is a voluntary association. And
voluntary?
Voluntary association. I mean, what I mean is that there is no legislation forcing anybody to be a member. And so until that is done, not everybody will belong. Some belong, some don't belong. And in some states, what the government has said, you go there, you must be a member of that association. But sometimes when the legal issues crop up, people will. But we are seeking an act of parliament. We have submitted, a bill to the National Assembly to that effect, and we are working on that. If it sails through, then that we will get to that point where we will become the recognized association, and membership of the association becomes compulsory on every private school operator. And then the full responsibilities that are expected of us will begin to do that.
A lot of things that we can do. But then we have issues of internal corruption. Some of the reforms that I tried to introduce during my tenure there as the Commissioner for Education, that you need to segment the processes by which a school gets approved and registered. You don't have to concentrate the powers in one person's hand. It will lead to gross abuse, as we've had over the years. So if it was about checking, let's say, the qualifications of the individual teachers in that school, there has to be a department that will have to look at that. Now, once they have vetted that, they can now move it to, let's say, the particular another department that will look at the physical structure of that school. If you are talking about the safety of the school environment. So, in other words, you just have to divide some of these functions so that there ought to be due process. What we have right now is a situation in which a person who is unscrupulous, who has the power, can literally approve a school in a week.
Wow.
Or less.
Okay,
without even bothering to go through.
Okay, so that's one of the way forward you already mentioned. But then let's go straight to the phone lines, and when we return, we look at the way forward. It's an agenda setting program. 0808-182-6949, 0811-605-2949. You can also drop your messages on the SMS line 0906-510-8289. It is an agenda setting program right here, the impact, and we're looking at the education sector. So far, what has been the problem and what on? Hello, good morning to you. Good morning to you.
Morning.
Good morning.
Morning, Michael.
Good morning to you.
Good morning, I'm Excellence and the Honorable in the House.
You're welcome.
Mr. Manod, I'm calling from Umaya.
All right, you're welcome.
Please, the issue I'm having with some of the commissioners and of the state, please, I'm not trying to insult anybody, but I know it will help the state a bit. Most times the need for the people that are at the head to monitor or supervise things when it started happening. It would be a very, very shameful thing that some of the commissioners, or like let me just use education, you will see a lot of things. We never try to visit or monitor the teachers or students or whatever thing they are doing, both in university. Even when it comes to when they will be invited, you will see them sending people to go. Now, there are things you need to see as the person that is representing the government. If the government is not doing well, they don't know governor, they know the commissioner for this and that. So if peradventure maybe they were doing things that at least if you're in the field, you find out your faults, which you can present to the governor. And say, governor, look at where they're not getting it right. If you need to encourage him, you need to bring governors to. I still remember when he was the governor of the state.
All right, you have to wrap up your thought because of our time, please.
So anyway, they need to do a lot of things. There are a lot of things that are not put in place when it comes to the commissioners. It's not that all the commissioners are not doing well, but there are some good ones amongst them. They need to put things.
Thank you very much. Let's move on now. Hello, good morning to you.
Yeah, good morning, Michael.
Good morning.
Good morning. My honorable commissioner, good morning, sir.
Good morning, sir.
Thank you, sir. I so much appreciate what you have been able to narrate to us, explaining a very lot of things that have been wrong in the state, especially in the educational sector. I so much appreciate you on that. And I equally want to urge the governor, even as he's going to, is moving towards appointing other people to head some processes. I urge him not to have people like the person that has left Abia State Polytechnic, because there are some certain people that you will employ and they will mess up the whole system. At the end of the day, you will be held responsible. Because I was able to understand after late last year, Abia State Polytechnic was given 200 million. If I should say, you can't tell me that such an institution will be given such huge amount of money. At the end of the day, there is nothing to show for it. You will still be owing workers, and at the end of the day, this will be held responsible for that. I totally disagree with that, including Africa.
You have to wrap up your thoughts, please, because of the time too.
I need to bring those people down, probe them if they are guilty.
Thank you very much for your contribution. Hello, good morning to you.
Hello.
Good morning.
Good morning. Good morning, Michael.
Good morning.
Ike on the line.
You're welcome, Sir Ike.
Thank you. First of all, let me commend the commissioner for a job well done on behalf of the governor. Yes, education has always been the key thing in transformation of every state. I want to say that referring to the ICT area in education, particularly where we have a computer lab that is not functional. And there are equipment lying and following their store. I personally discussed with some friends that are old students in that school. I was talking to them mindfully. And technical equipment also there are there. Things are not put in place. What is the commissioner of education or the sector or that ministry doing in this particular sector in the educational? Because it's going to tell us that at the end of the day, when the students leave the school, they find it difficult to go down to something that will sustain them in the meantime until they get a job. But this technical field is a vital area that we should look into.
Okay.
What is their plan? Because
all right. Thank you. Let's move on, sir. Thank you very much. Hello. Good morning to you.
Good morning, sir.
Good morning.
Good morning, sir.
Good morning.
You didn't tell us your name, please. Your name, please.
I'm Uche. I'm calling from Umaya.
You're welcome.
Why people are holding government responsible for the things happening in our tertiary institutions? Some of these institutions, the government that appoints the leaders, like the rector, the VP, and the principal officer, even the board members. So if there is any law in such area, why don't government discipline the managers of those institutions, or even bring them to law? At least even if those people are being punished and new people come, they will make those people to know that you can't just come and run these institutions and bring it down.
All right.
That is one. And then the second one.
Okay, just in 30 seconds, please.
The second one is about the secondary school. Some of the successes we see in secondary school, like WAEC and JAM, is they actually product of exam malpractice. I must say that. So I think, especially in private schools, governments, the Minister of Education should set up a very good and standard architecture that makes those schools.
All right.
A lot of things are going on.
Okay.
I have a junior sister who is currently writing WAEC, and the thing is happening in that school. I personally called the proprietors and said that I don't want any form of assistance from my sister. But she told me that it will spoil their results if they don't do that.
Okay. All right. Thank you very much. Because of our time, I will have to let you go now. Thank you. Okay.
Yes, Honorable Commissioner. So many issues have been raised now, but let's see if we can calibrate it. Now, your administration changed the Examination Development Center to Examination Development Commission, right? I don't know whether that was just for administrative convenience.
No, all over the world, the examining bodies are somehow removed from daily political control. If you look at NECO is not under the Ministry of Education. If you look at JAM, it's not under the Ministry of Education. If you look at WAEC, it's not under. So every examining body all over the whole world is somehow kept a kind of arm's distance away from daily political manipulations. Okay. Otherwise, the integrity of their function will be compromised. So it's a federal government policy.
Okay, then I don't know whether you want to shed light on some of the support, financial support that ASUBEB got. How was that utilized to support the development of the education sector under your administration?
ASUBEB gets, on behalf of the state, some assistance from the UBEC, that's the Universal Basic Education Commission.
Do we have a figure?
We got about, I think, 4.5 billion, which is what we used to do those schools, 346 new school blocks. We are currently processing the 2016-2017. So once we get the counterpart funding for that one, we also use that one to. But you can't use those funds to pay salaries. They are strictly meant for supplies and the school building and to some extent training of teachers.
Let's quickly do the way.
Okay, the way forward now.
Way forward, exactly.
If you have another chance to administer that ministry, what is it that you would have done, or what is it that you would suggest to be done in the sector?
I think we need to develop some of political will to implement some of the measures that are already on the table. We need to downsize the workforce at Abia Poly to make it more sustainable. At SETA, we need to find ways of making sure that we commercialize some of the things that they do there. They are challenged by so many factors: location, the kind of courses that they offer, which are no longer popular anyway, and a whole lot of factors. So you need to have people who have a business mind when it comes to running academic institutions. That is the trend all over the world. You don't just hire an academician. You hire somebody who understands that, yes, you are providing a service, but you can also make some money from it. You can also make it more sustainable. It's not just sitting on your arms and waiting for government to be dropping money or students to be paying money. As an alumnus of my school in Canada, I still get emails from them till tomorrow for them to donate. There's no school in this country that has even raised any big amount of money from their alumni. I'm just giving an example. That's not even Harvard. Harvard gets nothing less than 10 to 50% of their budget from their former students. So there are things that tertiary institutions can do in this country to augment their income stream and make them more sustainable.
All right, thank you very much, Professor Mazie Habo. A lot has been said, but then if we continue this conversation, we would not leave this place. Issue of malpractice, issue of politics attached to education, of course, a lot. But then, what is the way forward?
Yeah, the way forward is, first of all, like the Prof said, developing the will to do these things. I know there's a lot of pressure on government and employment and all that, and you see that the government spends money to train teachers, and these teachers don't stay in the classroom. They transfer to the Ministry of Education because it's a little softer there. And the professor also, he can tell you about that. I know the demands that come from him, people wanting to transfer from classroom to the ministry and all that, and even in the ministry, people wanting to stay in certain departments because that is where some things come out and all that. So, and Also, I think that we have also made a mistake by tagging the Ministry of Education as a revenue-generating ministry. Ministry of Education should not be tagged as a lot of demands from the IGR people on the ministry, which is wrong because it comes down to the private schools. And the more you put financial pressure on the private schools, the more they compromise to get the money to pay to you. And so we need to look at it that way. If we need to get what we want, then we have to reduce the demand they make on the ministry on revenue, on IGR. Because it shouldn't be, it's a social service that education provides, and it should be seen like that. And so we should also put our feet down on, the approval of schools. We should put the right people there. Education is the only place that somebody goes to start a school, then calls government to come and inspect that I'm doing something. You can't do that if you're setting up a hospital. You can't go and set up a hospital, then put patients in the hospital, then call Ministry of Health to come and see and give you approval. But that's what we are doing here. We open school, then we call Education Ministry to come and inspect, and children are already there. And if I fall below the standards, they can't close down because children are already there, and we begin to appeal on emotions and call our brothers to come and beg on our behalf. We already have children. Where will the children go? I've invested this amount of money. But when you were investing, you didn't call government to come and look at it. So the first thing is, when you have intention, tell government I have an intention, and they look at the guidelines and tell you the guideline. You are supposed to situate your school this number of meters or miles or kilometers away from the existing schools. And if you don't meet that standard, automatically they tell you, no, don't go there. Look for another location. But not when you have built a multi-million naira project and nobody can tell you to stop at that point.
All right. We want to really appreciate your time this morning. It's been a very interesting conversation with you, Mazi Enyihabo. And of course, the immediate past, Mazi Enyihabo is as an educationist, the executive director of Mayfair Academy in Umuahia, and of course the National Secretary of the National Association of Proprietors of Private Schools. And of course, the immediate past Commissioner for Education in Abia State, Professor Ikechi Mboje. We really want to appreciate your time. Gentlemen in the studio of Flow 94.9 FM. We will be back later today, 1 p.m. It will be time to look at the health sector, look at the Minister of Health in Abia State, the impact, the agenda setting program right here on Flow 94.9 FM. Samson Eze, thank you very much.
Thank you, Michael. Join us by 1 p.m.
My name is Michael Onido. Have a fantastic Friday.
Radio.
It's not just radio anymore. Flow 94.9 FM brings you something big and new. Let's give you that camera lights action effect, which is also part of our complete outside broadcast services for all your event coverage.